Hey guys, Kevin here, and I woke up this morning wanting to stab a black person. Knowing that black genocide is coming makes life in America a little more bearable. All I want for Christmas is black genocide, and all blacks need to die. It's a white world. Guys, those are tweets from college professors and verified black activists on Twitter. Tweets that were not taken down, by the way. But if I tweet something like Islam is Sharia law, that gets me banned from Twitter forever. Guys, this is racism. And by me replacing the word white with black shows you just how racist it actually is. It lets it hit home. Because people have been programmed now to think that there is a difference. And what's more racist than treating one group differently than the other? But it's the media and the left that is fueling this. And we shut this stuff down in the 1990s. This is what I like to call fuck white people narrative. We shut it down in the 90s and totally rejected it as a country. But it's been stoked in the underground for so long and started reappearing in leftist rags and university papers printed off by white university professors and Democrats who wanted to relive the glory days of the 1960s and flip their KKK party tactics over to the opposite side to use for the same end game, which is exploiting stupid people with racial division. So guys, when you see the first page of Google and it has articles like 35 questions black people have for white people, inside the movement bringing the fight to white communities, and the newest one, can my child truly be friends with white people? That's from the New York Times today. And this article is probably the greatest example of the left-wing racial hypocrisy I have ever seen. It is totally disgusting. And you know what? This is what leads to things like what we're seeing in South Africa. There's a white genocide going on in South Africa right now. Because this kind of nonsense, this kind of critical theory and postmodernism has been promoted by the left in South Africa and pushed so hard, it has stoked the fires of racial division to a precipice where there's actual white genocide going on. And people who own farmland for decades, yes, you libtards out there, they didn't live there back in the 1400s or 800 years ago, whatever. They weren't there then. But they moved there 200 years ago or 300 years ago. And they've been there since, tending that land. And yes, they might have oppressed some black people at some point. Okay, but there were other people who oppressed other people 200 years ago. And it's a cycle that went on throughout history until America and the West actually stopped that cycle of conquest and exploitation. And replaced it with free markets. The free markets you want to destroy. But I digress, okay? This is based in critical theory. It was founded by Theodore Adorno. It's called critical theory, and it's the idea that you criticize and destroy every institution that builds up the West or capitalism, and you replace it with something that is totally against that institution or that culture. And it's always been about that. The left hates what they call bourgeois culture. And most leftists can't define what the bourgeois is, but it's the middle class, it's the family, it's everything that built America and the West into what it is, and they call that bourgeois. And that's why they want to destroy the family. That's why they want to destroy our culture in the West. And it's not just white culture when I say our culture, it's Western culture. Family values, traditional families, free markets, freedom in general, free speech. We see the left attack all this stuff. But I want to read this article. Can my child be friends with white people? Because it really expresses the problem with postmodernism and critical theory. So, it is impossible to convey the mixture of heartbreak and fear I feel for him. My son is what he's talking about. Donald Trump's election has made it clear that I will teach my boys the lessons generations old. One that I, for the most part, nearly escaped. Yeah, he nearly escaped it. See, he's saying himself right here that racism had disappeared. But they brought it back. They brought it back. I will teach them to be cautious. I will teach them to be suspicious. I will teach them to distrust. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if a white person was saying that about black people? It would never make the New York Times. It wouldn't make the rag here in Youngsville, North Carolina, for God's sakes. But you see, this really bothers me because my children are not white. All right? And I'll be damned if some leftist libtard out there who's projecting their own racism, because that's what this is. It's more left-wing projection. If they went up to my kids and said, hey, you have to distrust white people. I mean, for God's sakes, why, if a 4-year-old kid at that, why would you do that to a 4-year-old kid? I want my kids to enjoy life and have a playful, happy childhood, not be concerned with all this stuff. That's why I'm fighting it right here and now. But you want your kid to distrust people based on the color of their skin? And I know that you leftists out there will say, well, Kevin, you're white and privileged, and, you know, you're just going to brainwash your kids into being, you know, white, heteronormative. Maybe so. Maybe that's true. I don't know. All right, whatever. I think my kids will fare much better in society if they were taught that their own merit is what will get them ahead. If they were taught to face adversity like everybody else does and just push through it. You know, is that such a radical idea? I'll go on. I will have to discuss with my boys whether they can truly be friends with white people. And now, like I said, imagine if he said I'd have to trust my boys if they can truly be friends with black people, or straight people, or gay people. Meaningful friendship is not just a feeling. It is not simply being able to share a beer. A real friendship is impossible without the ability to trust others, without knowing that your well-being is important to them. That is so insane. He's saying right here that white people don't care about the well-being of other people based on their skin color. If that was true, there wouldn't be so many people like myself who married and have children with people of other races. Guys, I live in a Republican area, okay? Mostly middle class, upper middle class Republicans. I have never had any distrust from my neighbors or felt like my kids or my family was being scrutinized because of the color of their skin. But I have seen that in Democrat areas. I've got it from my so-called liberal friends who want to pander to people based on their race and who want to segregate people based on the color of their skin. See, they've just taken the tactics of the Democrats from the 1960s and 70s and flipped it on its head and basically reversed it. So they've taken the same racial politics that they used to target dumb white people back in the 60s, and they've flipped it to dumb minorities now, and dumb white people also, and had them just replace black and straight with, you know, gay and white, or white and straight with gay or black. And that's what happens. History has provided us little reason for people of color to trust white people in this way. And these recent months have put it in the starkest relief, the contempt to which the country measures the value of racial minorities. Guys, this country values racial minorities more than any country in the history of the world. There is no other country in the world, and I've been to over 20 countries. There's no country in the world where a minority population can enter the country, become millionaires, walk the halls of power, become elected president. Not happening anywhere else. There is a reason so many minorities pick up their shit and leave these socialist utopias to come to America. Because these countries have been divided by this kind of, you know, cultural Marxist crap. They've also been destroyed economically by Marxist principles and socialist policies. And these people, they saw through this BS and left. And came to America because they knew America would welcome them. And yes, we don't want illegals flooding our country because there are problems our country already has, and we do not want to magnify those problems or multiply them. But this kind of BS has to stop. This kind of stuff we're seeing from the media, this, like I said, the fuck white people narrative, excuse my French, has to stop because it is going to lead to serious problems in this country. And, you know, race relations under Obama, when this stuff first started popping up, they started declining faster than any time since the 1960s and 70s. And at the same time, black communities and minority communities were left worse off under Obama and under Democrat rule than any time since the 1960s and 70s. And that's not by accident. They want to keep people dumbed down. They want to keep people poor and to feel like they're oppressed so they can reach their ultimate agenda, which is postmodernism and Marxism. And that's how they get there, by dividing us, by keeping people oppressed, by making people feel like somehow the majority or the power structure is actively oppressing them. We have to red pill them. You've been red pilled. Out.